Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm your host Ashwin. I'm joined by Varun. Varun, it's kind of hard to believe 4 weeks of the IPL are already done. I was writing up the title of this episode and it said IPL Week 4. Oh, it's not preview actually, it's review. So I need to go ahead and change that. But yeah, how are you feeling? 4 weeks are already done.
Yeah, it's like now starts coming to the time where you're thinking in 3 weeks' time, what do I do every day with my life? How do I fill that void? And we've done it for 15 years, and life goes on. But week four is exciting time. It's just past the halfway mark. I was seeing Star Sports, they're calling it rival week or something like that because they're starting to come back into teams playing
Yeah.
game number two against each other and getting revenge for what happened in the previous game. So it's fun, man. I mean, we're going to talk about the table, but generally, what has summed up the last week for me is that the middle order has started coming good. The first couple of weeks it was openers, and now it's middle order. So that's been my
You're
highlight.
talking about the middle order of each team, not the middle of the table.
Yeah, exactly. The
Okay.
middle of the table is still decent. The bottom of the table is not.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. If you look at it, you could sit here and say Gujarat looks like they're pretty certain. I mean, 6 out of 8, 6 wins out of 8. It looks like they're pretty certain they'll at least finish top four. And then Delhi's basically, I don't know if mathematically, but basically all but out. And
So you talked about mathematically. I think just for the listeners, this is only the year two of 10 teams.
yeah,
Historically, in the IPL, you've needed 14 points plus
mhm.
a solid NRR to just about make the cut. 14 doesn't necessarily guarantee you a spot in the top four. I think with 10 teams, that has become 16. So just that everyone's aware. And I think 16 also may not guarantee you. But with NRR, unless I shouldn't think differently, but I think 16 is that basic cutoff now.
Yeah, I didn't do this before. I'm trying to do math, but it feels right. I think that generally
Yeah.
feels like the right amount of math. So, which basically again means Delhi is likely not to make it. You could say KKR and Hyderabad are looking tough. However, Gujarat looks like they're pretty solid. But Varun, that means in the middle, from spots 2 through 7, everybody's still in contention, right? And we'll go down the kind of overall points table. But I think the other thing that happened this week was really it felt like total started to inch higher, which is not always normal in these long tournaments as you start to get used pitches, dead pitches, spinners coming good. But it felt like there was a lot of 200 run scores and a bunch of teams starting to chase it down too, right?
Yeah, it did. And the funny thing for me is that I think the pitches that we thought weren't going to be high scoring, like I don't know if Lucknow, Mohali, at least not as high scoring as a Wankhede or a Chinnaswamy, they've all kind of kicked off, right? Like all of these pitches are getting you 200 plus scores. And I think that is an effort, right? Like this year's IPL is actually very, very close. I feel it's a batting heavy IPL. But yeah, it's been great. It's been great to see.
Yeah, so I mean, interesting, and we've had some really high totals get chased down, and we had some pretty mediocre totals be defended. So always fun when it's a close competition. They did celebrate the IPL's 1,000th game today, which was all the rage, and I thought it was like that's such a random kind of statistic, right? Like I don't know if it was some young marketing guy who's like, let's make a big deal of it, and everybody's talking about it, but like we've never celebrated 1,000 games of anything.
There haven't been 1,000 games of
I guess
anything.
that's true, but anyway,
Because
it,
they put out a poll saying in 1,000 games from now, who would likely be captain, like Tilak or all these Jaiswal, etc. And I was trying to do the math. I was like, that feels like a long time.
1,000 total game. Okay, that's
It was
like another 13
74.
years. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So in
yeah.
13 years, maybe Tilak is captain.
I mean, we never know. It's hard to predict. But Varun, let's start talking about the points table. We're going to go down bottom to top. I'm going to not go through every single game because that gets a lot and we don't need to relive every single one. Also, I've realized when you talk about one team playing against another, by the time you get to the other team, you've already kind of talked about it a
Yeah.
little. So I just want to talk about a few highlights. But starting with the bottom, again, unfortunately, Delhi played 2 games this week and it was the doubleheader back to back with playing SRH and then at home and then away. Disappointing. I mean, one win, one loss, and the win was very, very scrappy. A couple of notes really to take home. I think Mitch Marsh finally came good, but of course, when he did, Delhi still lost. And then in the win, again, arguably Hyderabad handed the game to Delhi, but still playing sort of Akshar Patel too low, and it feels like there's sort of an issue of thought leadership and strategy. And there's a couple teams for which I'll say that. So I guess my question for you really is, what do you do from here if you're Delhi, right? If you're Ricky Ponting and Dada and Shane Watson, which is quite the think tank on paper, you've won 2 out of 8. You're likely not to make the playoffs. Do you just start? Do you bring back Riley Rosso and Rovman Powell and change it up? Do you persist with the Aman Khans of the world who haven't really lived up to the potential they had? What do you do when you're 2 out of 8?
I mean, I think you find a way to prioritize getting into the middle of the table. So you do want to continue winning. You you definitely need to start thinking about next year. And what do you do there, right? Like for example, a Rovman Powell, just get him in a bit more, make him play spin because he plays that kind of Hetmeyer role, and I think it's a very important role as a tournament progresses. But the sad thing for Delhi is beyond that, I don't know if there's that much they can do. Like, what else do you do? There's no auction this year. I think strategically you sign up for some decent trades, right? That's probably your best bet going forward in the next 12 months, making sure that you're scouting new talent, and ensuring that guys who are retained with you are getting enough opportunities now because you have nothing to lose. I think coming ninth or 10th really doesn't matter. But yeah, talking about the Delhi team, I think a few things. One, Prithvi Shaw is dropped, and
Wasn't even
not
in the subs.
yeah,
Wasn't
not
even
even
in
in the
the
sub. So
appointment
it's a
list.
very clear message, and I think that's a great sign because I think somebody like Prithvi needs a kick up his backside, and this is it. And Ponting actually came out and said it's been 13 or 14 IPL games across 2 seasons since he last scored a 50. Um, Even when you look at that stat, I'm willing to take a bet that says 10 out of the 13 times he couldn't even cross 15 or 20.
Yeah.
So Ponting has come out pretty strongly and said that. So I think that is one. Secondly, Phil Salt or Salt Phil or whatever his name is, he finally is coming, looking good, looking better, decent keeper, opening bat. Definitely not of the potential of other overseas players that teams have, but doing that. Yes, third, Mitch Marsh, the guy who feels like Ponting's son, the only guy who never gets dropped from the team. He is he's coming good. He picked up 4 wickets and hit 50 plus, and that's what an all-round performance is. I mean, you could imagine Shane Watson would have been very proud of him. So I think those are the top three, and then fourth, Akshar. Man, I saw again Star Sports. I watched it on that. They showed like players who have had the highest impact in this IPL, and Akshar Patel was among the top five.
Yeah,
Right.
so I don't want to spend too much more time on Delhi, but why are they not playing him more then? Like, why do you keep insisting on batting him at 7 if none of your players ahead of him have really delivered? Should you play him at
I
4? I mean, yeah.
I mean, I think I would. I think there's a case for five. I do feel four is a bit early, especially if he was to get out or something like
Especially
this.
given that a fourth wicket or second wicket is falling pretty early consistently.
Yeah, I mean it's a stupid logic, but yeah, if Akshar Patel, I would bat him at five. I think that's a great position for him.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll add to what you said is that Prithvi Shaw batted 6 innings, averaged 7.8. Then you had Aman Khan, who got 5 innings of batting, averaged 6.8, and Abhishek Porel, who batted 4 innings and averaged 8.2. It is just, and then you look, Mitchell March is still averaging 15.6, Sarfaraz is averaging 13.2. Like, it really is David Warner, Akshar Patel, and that's it. Manish Pandey made some runs in the last game, but yeah, just nobody else showed up.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the game we won against SRH, we made only 144, so they lost it. I
Yeah.
don't think Delhi won it.
Let's talk about SRH then. So they're slightly ahead of Delhi on the table, but only 1 point ahead, and or one win, 2 points ahead, and really not looking great, right? When we last spoke, I had picked as my X factor one of the few that I was seemingly wrong about. I picked Harry Brook, and he made that magnificent century, and then has just failed a few times again. But yeah, so obviously the only 2 matches SRH played in the last week were against Delhi. Talk to me about their batting order a little, right? So Brook and Mayank opened, then Abhishek and Mayank opened, then Brook was at 4, then Brook was at 5, and what they just haven't seemed to figure it out. Even though it seems like on paper everybody said they're a good side going in.
Yeah, and I got a lot of hate for it, right? Because I said, yeah, this team just doesn't look like they're going to gel. Um, I mean, they've batted Mayank Agarwal at number 6. I think the last time he batted at 6 was in the Gabba test because there were only 11 people fit enough to play.
Yeah.
I don't recall another time he's batted at number 6. Or so for me, it's It's shocking, man. Like, if Abhishek Sharma is that good, then just be consistent with him. He is a good, genuine all rounder. He gets you runs in the power play. Um, I don't know. I just don't get it. You're right. Nothing seems to be working for them. They started off decent. Harry Brook, I mean, that comment he made about, I hope this will shut Indian fans up. Yeah, it's come to bite you, man. You've hit
It just
single.
has you just can't
You
say that stuff.
yeah, you've got single digit scores after that 100. You've become irrelevant. I mean, we play fantasy. Nobody's picking him now because there's just no faith in him. Mayank Agarwal just hasn't come good for a long time. Markram, I thought would do much better, but he's been, I don't know, it's just unlucky or not good enough. Klassen is doing well. Sundar has another hamstring injury. Like, the number of injuries Sundar has is unbelievable. And then even bowling wise, like, apart from Bhuvi, who's the consistent bowler in that team, man? It's just, it feels like a little bit of a mess.
Yeah, it's been disappointing, and I think the only thing I'll say is Sundar, to your point, is now out for the rest of the season. So just disappointing. Just can't. Seems like such a talented player, but disappointing. And honestly, not a lot else to say about it. Sorry, it's like between last week's episode and this week's episode, Hyderabad and Delhi played each other twice and are both bottom of the table. So I'm going to spend less time on them. I'll keep going up the table, and KKR is next, right? And so KKR before, so but when we last recorded this, Chennai and the Chennai match had just started, and had incurred a huge loss to them. And that, I mean, obviously an outstanding performance by Jinkya Rahane, and we'll talk that in the CSK section. Then they picked up a pretty good win against the RCB team, and then they lost to the Gujarat side,
Gujarat
and
Titans.
everybody seems to lose to Gujarat. So it's hard to say what drove that, but a couple of thoughts there, right? Jason Roy was a big factor in the win against RCB. Varun Chakravarti finally showed why he's this good and why he was retained by them. And then Roy couldn't play the next game, but Gurbaz subbed in for him and also played excellent at the top of the order. And Russell hit some good sixes, but then Varun, after a man of the match performance, took 0 for 42. So is it? I guess I said this on last week's show, but I come back to it again. Is it an issue of thinking and captaincy? I asked this with Delhi, but I really feel this with KKR. Doesn't feel like they're maximizing Russell. Doesn't feel like they're picking Gurbaz and Roy when versus Roy when the grounds are playing to their strengths, or when maximizing shorter boundaries and field positions. And no discredit to Nitish, but I can't help but think that's part of the issue here.
Yeah, it is. I think Nitish Rana, I don't know if he has that captaincy, that experience um, to lead this side, right? And I think they've also been a little bit messed up in their thinking. Like, suddenly we saw Thakur come in at three. Thakur has been dropped the last few games. Jagdishan is just not coming good, right? He was with Chennai, and he didn't get that many opportunities because Ruturaj started playing well. But he was touted as like a pretty good, the next big thing. David Weiss is a class player, but again, where are you batting him? I'm just three, four, five, six, seven, 6 or 7. Why aren't you changing this up, right? Like, I think KKR needs to now just get Gurbaz and Roy to open, and just have a Venki Iyer at 3, and everyone just needs to keep going for it because you do have enough firepower. Can't help but think that Russell and Narayan are a pro and a con for them, right? Like, you can't move past them, and they've done so well for you in the past, but at some point you got to move on. Like, I don't know. I didn't think KKR was this bad a team, but it's just nothing seems to be clicking for them. And also remember our predictions, right? Like, we had said, what I had said, SRH will be pretty low at the table, which is right. I think you had said Samson will fail after the first 2 innings, which has been spot on. But DJ said KKR is going to be in the top 4. We don't have DJ on today, but next week we definitely should ask him about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think you summarized it really well. The only one shining star that I give a shout out to has been Rinku Singh. I think
Yeah.
he has just been such a revelation. I mean, he's been excellent for years now, but really consistently showing up in the IPL, and young future talent. So I really hope they get some good wins and allow him to continue to showcase his talent. Because yeah, you sit here and say they've got 3 wins out of 9, but while Hyderabad and Delhi have only played 8 games. Excuse me. However, One of those was that Rinku Singh magic. Like they really
Yeah,
didn't even deserve
that's
that,
what. And I
arguably,
remember
right? So
talking to my KKR friends at that point when I said the only difference between DC and KKR up to one game ago was 5 balls played by Rinku Singh. That's the only
yeah,
difference between the teams. Yeah.
absolutely right. Right. Let's keep going up the order. And a little bit of a surprise entrant if you ignore last year, but in seventh place on the table this year was last year's wooden spoon winners or whatever we want to call them, is the Mumbai Indians. And so since our last show, they had a huge loss to Gujarat, and that's part of why I'm saying, okay, everybody seems like they're losing to Gujarat. It's fine, but this was a big loss to Gujarat, right? I think just tough across the board, and I'll ask you about more specifics. And then a fantastic win today, Sunday, at the second match of the doubleheader, thanks to some unbelievable heroics, kind of across the batting order, but Surya Kumar Yadav, and then of course Tim David at the end. So nice to see them back to that. Like, hey, Pollard and Hardik finishing matches for them. They kind of did that again. Let me ask you a little bit about the fact that in both these games they conceded 200, and one they couldn't 200 plus, and in one they couldn't chase it down, and one they did. Like, what's happening overall with the bowling? So Arjun Tendulkar defended that last over, then went for 31 runs in the over. Then last match, got to give him credit, 2 overs, 1 for 9, but only bowled 2 overs despite being 1 for 9 in the two. And then Riley Meredith, Cameron Green, Kumar Kartikeya all got smashed by the Gujarat team. And so that's my one question is the bowlers, and two, we got to talk about the skipper. He was my pick for X Factor, and I just want to know what you think is going on. And happy birthday, Rohit Sharma.
Yeah,
Great
happy
day to ask
birthday,
that
Rohit.
question.
Yeah, because I'm about to launch it to him. But let's wish him happy birthday, talk about other things, and then come into that. I think that'll be
Perfect.
a
Well,
good.
well broken apart. It's the
So happy
sandwich
birthday.
method of feedback, right? If say
Yeah,
something good, then say
so
something.
happy birthday, Rohit. Great job on staying alive and getting to another year.
Did you see the joke
Um,
he cracked at the press conference, by the way?
no, what?
Harsha said happy 36th birthday, right? And he said, I'm only 35. And poor Harsha got really awkward. He's like, oh gosh, they've given me the wrong data. And then he said, no, I'm kidding, I'm 36. And it was just unnecessary, but fine.
Um, yeah, so let's talk about the batting and the bowling. The bowling is just it doesn't have the experience behind it. I think it's a probably a deliberate effort, but as you were reading out the list of bowlers, there is just nobody there with that kind of experience. Now, the plan was to have Bumrah and Archer bowl the last four every game, but plans don't always work out. Bumrah's not even there. Archer has been in and out, and Archer has been bowling pretty badly, if I might say so. And that's coming off the back of being out of international cricket for almost a year and a half, 2 years, I think. So the bowling is inexperienced. They are going to go for runs because they're not going to basically not figure out kind of how to bowl in the critical moments, right? So I think that's one. Arjun Tendulkar just doesn't have the pace, and so they have to play him carefully, right? Because you don't want to demoralize the guy. Yet you do. I see him as a great bowler to bowl through the middle overs. So I think that's there. But generally, yes. Apart from Piyush Chawla, and man, did he roll back the clock? He's bowling beautifully, and the whole Mumbai Indians bowling is centered around him. The batting. Now let's
I
talk
love,
about
by the way, that we keep saying roll back the clock. I mean, he's Virat Sage, right? So
yeah,
it
but
just feels
he's
like
been
he's
there.
so old.
I mean, he's
He
been
looks
there
also
since
pretty.
he's been there since what 2005 or
Uh,
something. Just been around.
uh,
Um, so yeah, what was I saying?
you're talking about the
So yeah,
batting.
yeah. So now the batting. So I want to give credit to them, right? Because a couple of games we've seen in Mumbai Indians yesterday, if all your batsmen go at 30 of 18 balls, you're going to win the game, right? 30, 35, 40 of 18, 20, 25 balls. You're going to win the game. It's not about who's getting the 50s. It's not about getting the starts. If you're chasing 10 runs and over, the lesson is keep going at 10 runs and over. Because if you start going at 6, 7 and it changes to 14, 15 required, you're going to lose. And we saw that a lot. And in fact, that was a trend. The teams batting first were starting to win. So I give a lot of credit to Mumbai for their middle order, just kind of figuring this out. Sky coming back to form is important. Green is a very clean hitter of the ball. Tim David finishing. Tilak in the middle. So it looks like a solid batting lineup. But given the bowling, you're going to have to chase, and everyone has to always fire. Sky was out of form earlier today. Kishan doesn't seem that great. I've said it before. I just don't think Kishan is reliable enough. But from an IPL perspective, yeah, he's a great opening batsman. The issue for me is Rohit Sharma. And Ashwin, I'm going to ask you, when was the last time he did something we remember? Like notable. I
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
I can't
You got
remember.
to go pretty far back,
For
unfortunately.
India, for Mumbai Indians, I just don't remember the last time he did anything.
Well, I mean, I guess it was. I mean, for sure, the 2019 World Cup, and let's give him credit for his
Yeah,
test
but
form.
that's been 4
No,
years.
and let's give him credit for his test form. He's looked pretty good in test cricket in the last couple of years. But in the T20 format, that is an excellent question. And there's a few of you listening live on YouTube. If you have an answer, let us know. I mean, yeah, but you're spot on. In the limited overs format, he just hasn't in
Yeah.
either limited overs format. So
And the last thing that I was telling a friend yesterday is his captaincy isn't looking great or inspiring either. So this whole I won 5 trophies and I'm the greatest captain India has never had, and those kind of things. So your form is bad. But nobody's talking about it. Why? When Kohli was going through this patch, the whole world was talking about it. Now your captaincy isn't great. You're languishing somewhere in the middle of the table. But I guess I don't know. Maybe he's just. I think Rohit Sharma doesn't have that much time left.
yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting actually. Now that you start saying it like that, and we'll talk about them later. But there are just so many young Indian top order batters who are jumping at the bit for those spots, and Dhawan and ODIs at least has already lost it.
Yeah.
And there will be fierce competition as soon as this next World Cup ends for those spots. And yeah, Rohit needs to step up, otherwise it's tough because they've made him skipper of all format skipper now, and suddenly he's lost his form. So right, we're gonna round out the top five and then we'll take a quick break. But RCB actually not a lot to talk about this week. Right? They only played one game. This is the
Yeah.
funny thing about scheduling and the fact that we record Sunday to Sunday. They got a couple more games this next week, but they only played one, and it was another loss. I don't really have much to say. I think the same thing. I said they were chasing about 200 odd and made 179. I just good credit to the KKR bowlers, I guess, but Virat looked good, and if Faf and Maxi don't fire, I mean, you got some runs from Lomro, you got Karthik starting to bat a little, but they made 179 for 8 and 20 overs, just didn't get there. So this is really a if this then that kind of. If Maxi and Faf do well,
Yeah,
then win. If not, then lose.
and that's been the case for 15 years, right? 16
Yeah, it
years
was
for
AB and
RCB.
Gale, and now it's
Yeah,
Maxi and Faf.
it's that's it. You got top three heavy, but did you see that meme about the batting order of RCB? It
No.
says it's Virat Kohli, Faf, Maxwell, and then it's O Palanhare, Nirgun और Hare, तुमरे बिन हमरा.
You sent it to me. It
That's
was
so
great.
great. I
That
just
is
went
awesome.
crazy when I saw
It
that.
was
That's what it is. Like just pray the night before and hope that
there's
tomorrow
nothing. There's nothing else that'll show.
there's
Yeah, I
nothing.
mean, disappointing, man. It's nice to see Kohli bat well, and it was great to see him as skipper in those couple of matches. But yeah, of course, Faf has just been doing the ideal. I know it's because of injury, but not field and then come out and as an impact player bat, and just it's great. It's exactly what every neighborhood cricket player dreams of. Right, Varun, let's take a really quick break and we come back and talk about the top five. A little bit of a different dynamic. This is the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We've covered the bottom five teams. Now let's talk about the teams that notched up some wins. The Punjab Kings team played 2 matches this week, 1-1, but they're sitting, in a pretty fighting position in fifth, and an outstanding win against a CSK side. And we'll talk about the how, but chasing over 200. And so, yeah, I mean, the first match they lost to Lucknow. Lucknow made 257, so they're probably looking at some bowling concerns, but Stoinis, when he just shows up, which again, we'll talk about Lucknow when we get there. But when you concede 257, you almost never have a chance. I'll give a shout out to the young uncapped opener, Atharva Taide, who made a pretty good contribution at the top of the order, got them to 201, but 257 has never been chased down in an IPL, nothing close. I think 226 or something is the highest chase. And then Dhawan came back. CSK gets 200. So again, conceded a lot. But Pandit, you got a chance to watch that last over?
Yeah, I did. It was something else.
I mean, specifically, I was on a plane, and so the Wi-Fi I had on the flight was pretty spotty. But I was texting you. That's why I was like, they needed three off the last ball, and you're thinking, okay, it'll either be swing and a miss, and they get one and fall short, hit it to a fielder, they manage two, or a boundary. And the
So,
last thing I expected, yeah.
but just to stop you before, because you were on a flight, what he did was he kind of before the ball was bowled, he looked at that way, right? He practiced a shot that was going to go behind the
He
keeper.
faked them out.
No, and what happened is that everyone thought he's faking them out,
And he
And
did
he
it.
actually played that shot.
The double bluff, as
Yeah,
Daddy calls it.
and so he did that, and the
That's
ball
brilliant.
just went over. It was always going to be two, and then when you stop the ball at the boundary rope, push it back in, and then come back to pick up and throw, you've got your run there. So, I mean, that experience, right? Like to run to three needed of one ball, nobody would think of running three.
Yeah, that's what I'm. I mean, that I would love to see what the probabilities were. It was probably the lowest like 1, 2, 4, 6 are the most likely scenarios. I would say more likely even that you have a wide or no ball. But I mean, full credit to Sikandar Raza, experienced campaigner, showed double bluffed them out or whatever he did, and just great. I mean, yeah, just full credit to them. Outstanding chase, nice to see. Obviously, it wasn't just him. It was a who ended up Devon Conway ended up getting man of the match, so that's not helpful. But Prabh Simran Singh at the top of the order. Liam Livingston came good. He hit those 3 sixes in 1 over, and he just started looking good. Sam Curran contributed, but yeah, seems like they're able to finish games, and they're happy to have Dhawan back. It seems like.
Yeah, so Dhawan, it's just great to have him back because on the field and at the top of the order, he's not done much, but even at 28 or 15 in a 200 chase is good. But here's the kicker for me, right? Like I want to give Punjab a lot of credit because this is what teams like DC and KKR should look at. I'm going to name 5 out of the 11 players, and I can guarantee you that, like, I mean, I would never have thought these 5 could be in the top 5 of the table. Prabh Simran Singh, Atharva Taide, Jitesh Sharma, Shahrukh Khan, and Harpreet Brar. 5 out of 11 are these guys. Arguably, all teams have these 5 types of players. It's just about how you click, how you come back, how you keep going for runs. And even when you fail, come pick yourself up, man. Get back into it. Like Aman Khan and what I mean, the averages you were reading out were just 6.2
I mean, I would
after.
back you. I would back you and me to average that if we got
Yeah,
to
I
go
mean,
play.
and I could go to the
Six, you
IPL and
just
hit
top edge and get
six
six
runs.
runs.
I mean, I could hit an average of 6.2, right? Like, okay, jokes apart, but DJ would be hitting
Yeah,
like averages
yeah,
of 20
DJ
in the
probably could.
IPL plus. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the one question mark they had on their kind of selection was the whole Nathan Ellis thing. Even when Rabada came in, they were leaving him on the bench, and then he did okay. But now that Rabada's back, you just see why he's the class all format bowler that he is, and it's nice that they've kind of found a settled overseas contingent as well. So kudos to Punjab. Wouldn't Not a lot of people predicted them being in a fighting spot, but 5 wins out of 9, they are right up there. And by the way, you mentioned Dhawan on the field and his captaincy, but there's something about the culture he creates off the field. You see it. The way at the end of a match, the players hug him, they reach out to him. The way he's in that dressing room, like cheering him. He's a good yes man. He's like a Raina esque. He's a little bit of a cheerleader for his players, and they seem to love that and react well to it.
Yeah, and he does Insta reels with them all the time. Like,
That's
what
it.
else could you do with young guys?
Oh, that's it. What else do you need to do? Right. Let's keep going up. They were higher up when we did last week's episode, and they've played 2 matches since last week and lost both. One to Rajasthan, one to Punjab, and we talked about both those games a little. But I'm talking about the Chennai Super Kings that have now dropped to 4th, still very, very much in contention, tied at 5 wins with the team in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. So they're right there to the point we made at the front. But yeah, a little bit of a struggle, right? After the Rahane heroics that against KKR, which were absolutely phenomenal. And I'll come back and ask you about him. Devon Conway then and made a 50 in that game, then couldn't get going in the power play in the match against Rajasthan. Just couldn't get going. Made 8 of 16 or something, and then came back and made 92 the next game and got man of the match in a losing cause, the Punjab match we just talked about. So lots to unpack with CSK. You're still pretty comfortable that they're in a fighting position. But let me ask you about the longest format of the game and the fact that Ajinkya Rahane has had a absolutely magnificent IPL and has now been recalled to the test side for the World Test Championship in England. What are your thoughts on this? This is a loaded question.
I'm so confused because if you go back like maybe 50 episodes or 40 episodes ago, I was just like, Rahane needs to be dropped, Rahane needs to be dropped, Rahane needs to be dropped. Now, a lot of people are going to see the IPL form and say that he's done this. Ravi Shastri came out in support of Rahane saying in 2020, or what was it, 2021, he won you that series in Australia and he hit Melbourne and nobody talks about that. Since then, he had a bad time. He then went to the domestic circuit and scored a shit ton of runs there. And now the IPL is just that final icing on the cake, right? So three things have worked in favor of Rahane, things that he could control, or two things. The other flip side is Shreyas Iyer is injured, and he was your number five. Rishabh Pant is injured, and so he between 5 and 6 you don't have that experience anymore. Sky and Kishan were taken not in the squad in India to play against Australia in the Test. I don't think they're going to be able to do it overseas. Their experience, they've never done it before. And then you're pretty much going to have to play a KS Bharat, right? Because in the championship final, you're not going to take a chance by making Rahul keep. I think we'll talk more about it after the IPL. And so I think it's naturally this is the best fit. So I give credit for them to think about it, and this is the best team that I think they are sending. I'm conflicted because, like I said, I was the first guy to say drop him, but I also think this is a one-off, man. I don't think we're going to see him back like playing in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm the biggest advocate of not confusing one form in one format for the other, for the most part. Like Sky, I think we just lost him months of his life by bringing him into the Test side and just messing up what our goal is from him. Just he is. When you watch the shots he hit, he's one of the best T20 batters maybe to have ever played the game. Let him be an expert. He's not 21 years old. You need to groom him for the next 15, 17 years. So on Rahane, I think the difference is two things. One, cricket is a momentum game. And so there is elements of the form and the momentum he has that could transfer through the summer. Two, he is one of our best current generation overseas test batters. Now, he hadn't had a good run of form. And so if Iyer and Pant were fit, to your point, there's no question in my mind that they go. But now that you have this, all the dynamics you said, and you layer in that he's got this momentum form on his side, I understand the merit. So we will talk about it a lot after the IPL, like you said. But it was interesting that announcement happened just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
We're into our top three. The Rajasthan Royals. So we talked about this massive CSK game that happened and a big, very important win. Yashasvi Jaiswal in that game made 77. And then in today's game against the Mumbai Indians, which actually was the loss, which is shocking to talk about, he made a absolutely magnificent 100. And it was a little bit of almost like the Venki Iyer 100, where he made 124 runs, but nobody else really stood up around him. And as magnificent as the knock was, Rajasthan just fell a little short. So when we talked earlier,
that was in Mumbai as well, Venki Iyer's 100.
Yeah, and Jaiswal's a Mumbai kid, right? So like for him, it was his home stadium, a home match from that perspective. Yeah, I mean, are you concerned about Rajasthan? I think Butler is somebody we've all consistently picked in our fantasy teams over and over, and he's been falling a little short. Samson, you mentioned earlier. But as long as Jaiswal comes good, Padikal's come good some games, how are you feeling about Rajasthan?
Well, so they're actually one of my favorite teams this year, and I really want them to win. They got very close last year. I think they've got a great squad. They've got great team dynamics, good overseas players, solid Indian batters, great spinners. Everything kind of works. Like I really like Rajasthan Royals.
And the spinner thing you said is my favorite thing about it. Just watching Ash, Chahal, and then on the grounds that allow it, Zampa, it's just magnetic. Like they can just choke you from over 7 through whatever.
Yeah, now think about
6
this.
through
Like,
18.
why don't more teams play 12 overs of spin? Because you can choke the players completely.
It was just great watching number one. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, but it's it's a situation where I think I'm a little worried about Butler because I don't know if he's lost interest or what. But like I have no doubt he'll show up in the playoffs, and that's when they need him.
Like
but
a huge century.
We talked about like correlation between Butler scoring runs and Rajasthan winning is unfortunately, even with this great squad they've built, it's just too high. So I think Butler needs to start coming good because remember in the IPL getting into top 2 is a huge benefit. So you don't want a situation where you're coming close and you've come number 3 because then you have to play 2 matches to get into the final. So I think that's important. Samson, man, the other thing is what's happening. Like he just does this every year. Okay, his captaincy may be getting better.
And there was a comment made today on, I think it was Bogle again, but on the commentary, where they said normally when players don't go on to make big scores, they look bad or they look scratchy or something. Samson looks so good for those first 10, 15 runs and then completely against the run of play tends to get out. And it just seems so countered. Like even when he made the 14, 15 he made in the last couple of games, those first few shots looked so good. And then just he couldn't convert.
Yeah, and I don't know there's a lot of arguments, right? If Samson can consistently hit 30 of 12 balls, maybe there's a case for a game like that. But I don't think he does that either, and I think that's what's worrying. But generally, I think all looks good. They're also shuffling with their batting order a little bit. Sometimes Ashwin comes up, Holder comes up, Hetmeyer has been good. Padikkal is just unfortunate, man. He seems like a great opening bat or even a number three, but in this squad, he's just not going to get that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he eventually makes his way to another team where he can get more of an opportunity. But yeah, congrats to Jaiswal. Picked up the orange cap. Was wearing it this morning on the field, and it's just so great to see a young Indian cricketer have that. I mean, he's still 21, recently turned 21, right? He's got a long and very bright future as a lefty, especially. Right, we're down to the top two. Both new franchises from last year's tournament. Last year's champion and I guess playoff qualifier, but didn't make it to the finals. In second place right now is the Lucknow Super Giants. And I talked about it a couple of times. They only played one game, I guess, this week was against the Punjab Kings. They put up 257. Varun, is the secret to Lucknow being able to put on these massive totals, allowing the skipper to get out early?
It has to be right. We saw
It's
a
so
really
crazy.
stupid stat that said when he gets out for under 20 runs, the team's average score is probably close to 200. And when he gets out for anything above 20 runs, their highest score has been 159.
Yes, when he made less than 20, the scores were 127 for 5, 159, 154, 128.
Yeah.
When he got out for less than 20, 193, 205, 213, and then 257, like
Yeah,
almost
so when you take the
horizontal.
average, that's like
It's
215 or
just,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, so why doesn't he get it? Like, why is he so stubborn? I just don't understand. Why is nobody around him telling him to change his game? We know he's done well. He's hit the fastest 50 and stuff. Like, he's just too stubborn, man. He just can't get over it. So yes, I think Lucknow has done really, really well. And we can see there's a comment that's coming from Nikhil Avasti. After how much Varun hyped up Rahul before the season, he's been a huge disappointment. Yeah, this is my fault. So Nikhil is a friend, and I told him Rahul has been the highest run scorer for many years. Now I didn't lie. That's the reality. I said the truth. Nobody can predict the future, but if you look at past history, KL Rahul has been a great fantasy
Listen,
player.
KL Rahul is 11th on the list of run scorers this year, still, right? Like, he's ahead of Rinku Singh, ahead of Shivam Dubey, ahead of Shikhar Dhawan, ahead of Glenn Maxwell, all of who've had good seasons. So he gets you points. He
Yeah, he
just
gets you
does it in a
points.
painful way.
It's very painful to watch. But yeah, Lucknow Super Giants looking great, man. I think top three for sure. And I'd said this before the tournament as well. I don't know. Stoinis was phenomenal in the last game. He did get injured though when he was trying to take a catch or stop a ball off his own bowling. So I hope that's okay. Nicky P looks very good as well. Deepak Huda looks terrible. He's done nothing.
Just after I vouched for him to be the next guy in the India's team. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, and Badoni's been promoted and stuff. So generally, yeah, looks like a good team, man. And I think nine bowlers with the impact rule can bowl at any time. I think they're looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the question is, does Quinton de Kock find his way back into the side? I mean, he's
That's
just
the
been
whole.
chilling on the bed.
It's amazing, man. Like I would, if I was Dickok, I would be super pissed, right? Like I'm in the form of my life. I've come down to be part of this IPL team, and you're making me sit on the bench. But
I think he
that,
walks into any of the other 9 starting 11s.
yeah, exactly. That's what I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, it's just unfortunate.
Yeah. I agreed. Right. We're down to our top side. And we're going to have to talk about Hardik Pandya's just continued magical run. I mean, they've only lost 2, and none of them were in the last week. They played the Mumbai Indians and the KKR side this past week. Just a couple of great victories. I mean, I know you want to talk about Hardik Pandya. Obviously, he's captaining the side, but some of the runs are coming from Hardik Pandya 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever we called him. And of course, I'm talking about Vijay Shankar. I mean, the way in which he just single-handedly beat the KKR side was shocking. And then Shubman Gill came back to form. They played Abhinav Manohar at 6, who I picked as my uncapped guy because I figured why not try something new, and he got me some points there in fantasy. And there was a great Rashid Khan started to show up again, even though he got trunked in the next day. I can go on forever, but they just look
It's
so
just
good, right?
they just have a different hero every game. That is it. That's the thing about Gujarat Titans, and I think that's what teams need to start realizing, that the IPL is not about the purple cap holder or the orange cap holder. If everyone from an Abhinav Manohar to a Tewatia to a Miller to a Gill to Pandya to Vijay Shankar, every one of these guys has won you a game on their own, and it's been different. I'm willing to bet that man of the matches are different for all the Gujarat matches. It's it's a great quality to have as a team. You can see Kirsten is there. You can see Nehra on the field. There's something about the dynamics that work. Hardik, what is he, the new captain? Cool. Maybe we'll see after this year's ODI World Cup. I think it's his captaincy is his for the taking. But man, the Vijay Shankar, the ease with which he beat
Hmm.
KKR,
It was
it's not
ridiculous.
easy. Sunil Narayan, Varun Chakravarti, he just stomped them with, there was 2.1 overs to go, and he finished off the
Yeah, he
match.
made it 50 of 23 or 24 balls.
Yeah, I mean
It
that
was
is
ridiculous.
unbelievable. This is a guy who we had all written off.
Yeah,
So yeah,
got to give him full credit. I mean, to your point, Gujarat just looks like a well-oiled machine. Great side. I will call out there was one nice moment in the KKR game, or nice for depending on how you look at it. But when Gurbaz made his 81, he ended up getting out, and it was Gurbaz caught Rashid Khan, bowled Noor Ahmed, and I think it was the first instance of all three players involved getting
yeah,
dismissal being Afghanistan. And when you think about when the IPL started 12, 13 years ago, I don't think anybody would have thought that could happen. So
yeah.
just great to see.
And Noor Ahmed, man, he's been bowling excellent, and so credit to him. Rashid, in fact, has been picking. It's a very interesting correlation. When you pick up wickets, your economy is bound to be higher because you are bowling a few more deliveries that is making the batsman play short.
Yeah.
In the last few years, I've always felt Rashid's economy was so good, but his wickets were not that high.
Yeah.
Maybe a perception, maybe factually
No,
it's not.
it's true. I don't think he's
But
that reliable like a fantasy cricket pick because
exactly,
he does
exactly.
but his role is to contain.
Yeah, this year he's picking more wickets, but boy, is he getting docked, man. He's
Yeah,
like, I
he
think he
went
went
for
for 50.
54 against the KKR team.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one to watch because great players do come back, right?
Absolutely. He's and he is a T20 grade if we ever saw one. Warren, some interesting matches to your point coming up in the week ahead. Do you predict a lot of movement on the points table, or you feel pretty good? It sounds like you feel pretty good about Gujarat and Lucknow. Any other movement predicted? Does RCB make a surge? Does Mumbai continue their winning form after this game? What is your kind of
I
bet for
think
this week?
I think Mumbai will get some momentum. I think RCB is going to struggle just because they have finished most of their matches at Chinnaswamy, right? So keep that
Mm.
in mind. Their
Yeah,
home
yeah.
games are done and they've not won enough at home. Now they get on the road and they start playing in all these different venues. That is not going to be that easy. Starting with Lucknow today, so I think RCB is going to have a tough time. But generally, yeah, I'm quite comfortable with the top four.
Right. So we talked a little bit about fantasy cricket. I'm going to do a quick update for those of you playing our Edges and Sledges fan league. I've had a pretty rough week, unfortunately, but I don't think I've used any of my boosters yet. Or have you? Have you used them? Varun?
Yeah, I've used two boosters and I'm having a worse week than you. So that's
Yeah.
how
So
bad
I
it
have
is.
hopefully I have time to search, but I've been a little behind. So I'm currently sitting in our Edges and Sledges fan league at 21st. Varun, I still don't think you're officially in it, which is great. But if you were, you would be 43rd. And
That's terrible.
DJ is down in 49th. So we all have a little bit of work to do. But quick shout out to our top three teams. We've seen some movement. The number one team is Mehek Shukla 96 with 14,982 points. Number two team is Kan San, who I think has actually been a top three player before. The name rings a bell. And number four is Pranav's one. Turup Gulan, who was in the top last week, has dropped to five, but still right up there. So keep playing. Make sure you use those boosters wisely. Make sure you remember to change teams for the double headers. Varun, this has been a lot of fun. Week five preview coming out. Review. I keep calling it preview. Week five's review will come next week, and we'll be back then at One Tip One Hand on all the socials: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Send us comments on YouTube. We read them all. Send us emails if you need to contact at onetiponehand.com. We'll be back next week to talk about week five of the IPL. Thanks for joining.